Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I want to talk about this balance in language learning between being very disciplined, having a routine, making a ton of progress, and enjoyment and having fun and having this kind of excitement for the language learning itself. And with language learning, there's this constant kind of balance going on where things are constantly in motion, right? You are really motivated, you are making a ton of progress. You're very disciplined, and then also at points that's going to wane. Your motivation is going to wane, and the same goes for your passion and excitement for the language learning process, right? Like how much fun are you having? And I talked about this in one of my recent videos, but I kind of wanted to expand on it a little bit more and just kind of make a separate video for it. But the thing is, you always want to really be very cognizant of the balance between these two ideas because they're going to probably just constantly be moving all the time. And especially if you have a longer term goal of fluency or a high skill level in a language, you're probably going to encounter this at some point. I know I have faced this many times in the past. So, the thing about it is that, when you look at it, right, one thing that I think a lot of beginners probably have trouble with, or just sometimes we all have trouble with, is just getting motivated, right? And not being consistent in language learning. And I think that this is kind of one aspect of this balance, right? You want to make sure that you are consistent with your language learning, that you have this routine, that you're making steady progress, you have some goals, right? There's this diligence to constantly be making progress to get to a goal of fluency. But at times we can get really burned out by a routine, right? At the beginning, especially when we're getting a ton of results, this routine works for us, right? We're putting a lot of time into vocabulary acquisition, for example. Maybe you're putting a ton of time into getting better at speaking, and you're seeing the results. You're seeing all this work and energy you're putting into it, and getting these great results back. But sometimes, when you're putting in all that time and energy, things change. You reached a certain skill level where those activities, those methods, those strategies aren't really helping you as much anymore. And so, things become a little bit more difficult. They become a little bit less fun. You're getting a little bit burned out, and you're not seeing the return that you've been getting in the past. And that bothers you. And if you're not careful, what can happen is you become less and less passionate about the language. You're having less and less fun, and then until both areas just kind of drop down and you don't have fun, you're not putting in any kind of consistency in your language learning, and you quit, right? And obviously, on the reverse side of things, if you have this excitement for language learning, you want to learn this language, but you have no discipline, you never make progress, ultimately it also leads to the same road of collapse. So we want to balance this constantly, right? So when you have that, let's say, routine and things aren't working out well, you have to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why am I out of balance here? Why am I not having fun? Why is this kind of routine that I'm doing burning me out right now? And in a lot of ways, I think it's just you need to incorporate fun activities into your language learning, right? Do things like reading interesting content in the language, have compelling conversations with others, listening to interesting podcasts, things like that. And sometimes it can be just a quick fix of, hey, you're not really enjoying the podcast you were using for language learning. Check out something else, right? Start watching some movies, play some video games, pick a different podcast. That can be the big difference maker for, just enjoying the language learning, right? Enjoying the process, reconnecting with that passion and that excitement in language learning. Other times, it's not even necessarily related to that. It could be that the method that you have been using, the strategy you have been using, is not as effective anymore. And so with all this time and energy that you put in, you're just not getting as much back. So I think a good example of this is, maybe you really focused on vocabulary acquisition with flashcards at the very beginning. You're getting a ton of results back, but then it's just you really don't feel like your vocabulary is growing. It's becoming harder to manage the flashcards. And so at this point, maybe you have to change your strategy up and then start using reading as a primary vocabulary method where you're going to really start to see a huge ramp up in your vocabulary. You're going to have some fun with it. Things are going to be different. And that is the key to reconnecting your passion. That is back, that's the kind of the new method for reconnecting with excitement and having fun in language learning. So, it's not necessarily just about the go and do fun activities. It could be that the method or the strategy that you have been using is just not effective anymore. You have reached a certain skill level where you need to move on to something different. It could also be things like, You need some novelty, right? You have been reading the same newspaper over and over and over again, and you're getting burned out. You are bored. Try reading books. Try doing different things. That novelty, approaching things in different ways can be very helpful. Maybe you're just really burned out from the kind of one-on-one conversation partners you have, and you want to, maybe a good idea would be to go out in the real world and then try to practice that kind of in, a meetup situation or with natives or something like that. You always want to be looking at, this constant balance between having fun, this passion, excitement, but also being disciplined. And at times too, you could be having fun, you could be enjoying things, but you're not, your progress is flatlining, right? Maybe you really need to start focusing on listening and you're not doing that. And then we go back to this balance on the other kind of side of things, which is, hey, how do I get better at the language? What do I need to work on? Maybe there's just absolutely no foundation in grammar, and that's holding you back. And while you've been enjoying these fun activities, that activity or that lack of grammar, for example, is holding you back. And so you need to go back and look at, okay, how can I learn this grammar now? How can I establish a routine, a new goal around this, to kind of get some discipline about learning these concepts that I'm weak at, such that I can then enjoy the kind of compelling content better. So there's this constant balance. You don't want to go on autopilot mode. It's easy to want to do that, but things are constantly in motion with things and methods that work very effectively, you having fun. So just be very cognizant of this balance between kind of this discipline, this routine, this intensity of getting better, and the enjoyment of the language, the excitement of it. And there's not going to be a very clear answer. You have to, take that initiative and really look at it, but don't neglect this. And you really want to have that balance, because learning a language to a high skill level takes a long time, and you want to have this balance. It's going to make for a more fun experience in your language learning. There's going to be more stability. You'll probably make more progress and run into less kind of traps that way. So, just when you're learning a language, be very cognizant of the balance between these two ideas. So that's what I had to say. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.